He once looked me in the eye and said, "You're a useless old man. Hand everything over and stay out of my way." The next morning my house was under his name, my accounts empty, my signature forged. He laughed on the phone with his partner. I could have broken. Instead, I gathered evidence, recordings, witnesses, bank records. In court, cameras showed him celebrating while I was left to survive. His career, reputation, and freedom collapsed in public. I didn't cheer. I simply restored the truth. My name is Martin Hale. I am 73, a widower, a grandfather, and I am not useless. I worked nearly 4 decades at the city water department and retired with a modest pension. I still live in the same 3-bedroom ranch, mortgage paid, bills current. I cook, drive, and manage my own accounts. I keep a basic file with my will, the deed, and recent statements. My wife, Ellen, passed 5 years ago. I handle my household without help. I see my granddaughter, June, twice a week for homework and dinner. My son, Brian, is 43 and sells financial products. He is polished, friendly, and impatient. In school, he pushed limits. In adulthood, he renamed debts opportunities. I helped him a couple of times years ago and told him that was the end of it. Since Ellen died, he has visited more often, usually with talk about efficiency, probate, and convenience. He pressed to be added to my accounts, to be on the house, to streamline decisions. I said no. He once brought a notary to a family cookout as a joke. I told them both to leave. I am careful. I keep key documents in a fireproof box and passwords to myself. I have an attorney who has reviewed my will. I do not sign anything I have not read twice. It began the evening my son, Brian, came by with a paper bag of bakery cookies and a face too bright to be honest. He had always been charming, quick with a compliment, quicker with a justification. "Dad," he said, lowering himself into my late wife's chair without asking, "let me help you with the bills." "With everything. It is time to make life easier." He said easier, like a promise. He meant easier for himself. I poured him tea in the wedding china his mother loved and told him the truth. My mind was clear, my hands steady, my lawn mowed, and my mortgage long since paid. I watched him lift the cup and hold it by the rim instead of the handle, the way he always did when he was pretending to be careful. He smiled the way men do when they are not listening, eyes on my mouth, not my words. He set a stack of papers on the table and squared the corners like a salesman. "Temporary," he said, tapping the first page. 5 signature lines glared up at me. Power of attorney. Healthcare directive. Transfer on death deed. Banking authorization. He had even flagged the lines with neat yellow tabs so I would not get lost. He slid a pen toward me as if we were simply finishing a chore I had forgotten to do. "Just while you focus on health," he said, watching for any tremor in my hands that he could use later as proof. I had been to the doctor last month for a routine check. Blood pressure fine, sugar fine, vision corrected. I told him that. He nodded as if I had confirmed his point. My chest felt tight, not panic, anger with nowhere to go. The china cup looked small in my fist. Ellen would have cleared her throat here, set a plate of cookies down, and changed the subject until he calmed. No one was going to step in now. It was just me and my son and a stack of papers that would erase my name. I read the headers out loud. I do that when something smells wrong. He shifted in the chair when I reached the word irrevocable. He said it was standard. He said everyone did it. He said he was trying to help. I thought about the last time he said that and how it ended with fees and a phone call from a bank manager who knew his voice better than mine. I slid the pen back to him. "No," I said. "I am not signing." I kept my voice flat. My heart was beating hard. He needed a wobble from me. I would not give him one. He laughed once, without warmth. The sound was short and mean. "You are a stubborn old man," he said, pushing his chair back so it squeaked on the tile. I felt the words hit and tried not to show it. I am old. I am also the person who kept this house standing. who buried his wife, who pays on time and shows up early. Stubborn is the word people use when they are told no. He walked to the door like he already owned the place. Hand on the knob, he turned back. For a second, I thought I saw the boy who used to fall asleep on the couch with a blanket half on. Then his face hardened into something practiced. "You are a useless old man. Hand everything over and stay out of my way." The room felt very quiet after that. I heard the click of the latch, the kettle ticking as it cooled, my own breath. I did not trust myself to speak. I stood there with the papers untouched and the pen still pointing at me like a dare. I told myself out loud, once again, so I would remember. I am not useless, and I am not signing. By morning, the house I built had a new owner, him. The county site showed the deed transfer with a timestamp just after midnight. My bank accounts, pension, and the small emergency fund at the credit union were emptied by a series of transfers spaced 15 minutes apart, each approved with my signature. The title office clerk said she remembered our call, confirming the notary. The bank manager said she remembered our authorization to lift the daily limits. I logged into my voicemail and found a recording of me granting permission. It sounded like me until I listened for the places I would have cleared my throat or asked a question. Those parts were wrong. He had cut together pieces of old family calls. He knows my cadence. I felt sick, not from the money, but from the fact that he knew where to cut. I called him. He did not pick up. I left a short message. "Brian, call me back." Now I stood by the window and watched the street like he might appear and tell me it was a mistake. He did appear, 2 hours later, walking up my front path with his jacket unzipped and a set of new keys on his index finger like a trophy. He did not knock. He tried the lock first, then rang the bell. All impatience. I opened the door but left the chain on. "Keys, Dad," he said, holding out his palm. "We have to make the utility switch today. Movers are scheduled for tomorrow to help get you situated. I found a nice senior place near the lake. Lot of activities." "Take your hand down," I said. My mouth was dry. "We are not doing this." He tilted his head like I was a slow student. "You already did. Paperwork is filed. Funds are in motion. I told you I would handle it." "You forged my name," I said. Saying it out loud steadied me. "You used a fake call. You used people who knew better." His smile went off like a light. "You are embarrassing yourself. No one is going to believe you were on top of this. Look at you. You did not even notice me fixing the gutters last week." He leaned closer to the chain. "Do not make this ugly." "Just give me the keys." I kept my hand on the door. I could feel my pulse in my fingers. I wanted to shout. I did not. "You are not getting a key," I said. "If you come back without a warrant, I will call the police. If you put a mover on my lawn, I will do the same." He laughed, but his eyes were sharp now. "Fine." I tried the nice way. He stepped back and raised his voice so the neighbor could hear. "Everyone told me you needed help. I am done begging." He walked off, dialing as he went. I closed the door and locked it. Then I sat at the table and wrote down exactly what had just happened. Time, words, who might have overheard. I do that when I need to keep control. Paper does not argue. He called someone after, and because he had misjudged me as entirely broken, he spoke on speakerphone while he stood on my porch. I stood just inside, listening, the tea kettle in my hands, even though I had no intention of making tea. "She bought it," he said. Old man finally did something right. The other voice, slick, amused, asked about the witnesses. Brian chuckled. I lined up what we needed. I set the kettle down carefully. My hands were steady. I did not trust myself to speak, so I did not. I wrote down their words, word for word. Then I called the bank fraud line, the title office, and the non-emergency police number. I gave names and times. I saved the porch camera clip. I told myself one thing, out loud, so I would not forget it when this got loud. I am not moving out of my house. I didn't ask the police to come out that day. I made oatmeal, burned it, threw it out, and made it again. I took a slow walk with my granddaughter's drawing in my coat pocket and let the cold settle me. Then I sat at the kitchen table because I knew from work and from life that the first story the police hear tends to become the story. If I showed up angry and empty-handed, my son would get a head start with his version. If I arrived with clean notes, dates, and copies, I would not be arguing feelings. I would be showing facts. I started with the money, so my head would be clear. About $6,800 gone from checking in 2 late-night transfers. About $19,000 gone from savings in 3 more. $22,500 yanked from the credit union as a cashier's check first thing in the morning. Roughly $2,200 in pension pay set to reroute if I did nothing. Call it $50,000 plus next month's check. I bought a cheap spiral notebook and 3 pens that actually worked. On the first page, I wrote a simple timeline. What happened and when. On the next, I wrote names and phone numbers. Then I called the bank and asked basic questions I could verify. Times and amounts of the transfers, which device logged in, and whether they had any authorization calls recorded. I wrote down the employee's name and the exact time we spoke. I did the same with the credit union, asked them to pause anything still moving, to send me an image of the cashier's check, and to pull the recording of the call someone made pretending to be me. I called the county recorder and asked for a copy of the deed, who filed it, when they filed it, and the notary's name. At home, I printed the past year of statements and used a yellow highlighter on my normal spending. Utilities, insurance, groceries, nothing at midnight. I pulled 5 good samples of my real signature from recent paperwork and slid them into a folder marked signatures. I put fraud alerts on my credit, then froze it all together, checked the post office for any change of address I did not make, and signed up to see images of my daily mail. I locked down my pension deposit, changed every password, and shut off any voice ID feature on my accounts. I kept the rest plain. I wrote a short letter to the bank listing the transfers I did not authorize, and a short note to the recorder stating I did not sign any deed and asking them to flag my property. I mailed both with tracking and copied the tracking numbers into the notebook. I photographed every document and saved the pictures to a thumb drive labeled with the date. The originals went into the fireproof box. Only then did I make my in-person plan, see the bank manager, the credit union manager, the recorder's supervisor, the neighbor with the doorbell camera, and the elder fraud unit at the district attorney's office. I was not avoiding the police. I was getting my house in order so that when I did walk in, I could hand them something they could use, and something my son could not easily twist. I sat at the table and reread the plan from the top, checking the times against the printed statements, making sure the names were spelled right. That is when his car pulled up, music loud enough to rattle the window glass. He did not knock this time. He rapped the door with the flat of his palm like a landlord late for dinner. I left the chain on and opened it the width of my eye. "Dad," he said, grinning like we were in on the same joke, "are we done with the dramatics?" I booked a tour at a very nice place by the lake. They serve salmon on Wednesdays. Bring the spare keys. I will handle the rest. I kept the notebook in my hand where he could see it. "I am busy," I said. "Come back with your lawyer." He looked past me into the house, the way people do when they want to remind you they can. You cannot keep wasting everyone's time. The bank already talked to me. The house is handled. Paperwork is all set. You are welcome. He started to reach toward the chain, testing it with his finger like a child testing a fence. I stepped my foot behind the door and he pulled back just enough to smirk. "You always did like making things complicated." This is why Mom handled everything. I felt that one, but I did not give him the satisfaction of seeing it land. I lifted the notebook so it blocked his smile and read the last line out loud, calm and steady, like I was reciting a grocery list. District Attorney, Elder Fraud. In person. He laughed too loudly, the way people do when they are checking whether you mean it. "Go ahead," he said. "Tell them you misplaced your passwords." Tell them your memory is slipping. See how far that gets you." I closed the door, turned the deadbolt, and stood still until his footsteps moved off the porch and the music receded. Then I reopened the notebook and circled the word "in person" twice. If he was going to treat my home like a lobby and my life like a schedule he set, then I would respond in the one way he could not spin: quietly, on paper, with dates and names that do not raise their voices. Now, reviewing my plan preparation, I saw the greater vision. My justice story will be written over my son's ego and pride. I'll collapse everything he had even cared about, and triumph by restoring the truth. Soon I shall execute my plans. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. I grabbed my coat, my notebook, my ID, and the folder with my real signatures. I locked the door and drove to my bank. I asked for the manager. I told her the simple truth. Money moved in the night that I did not approve. I showed her the times and amounts. I showed my ID. I kept my voice steady. She called their fraud team while I sat there. They stopped the transfers that had not cleared yet and flagged the account my money was headed to. She printed the page with the times and gave me a case number. I asked her to save the phone call they used to authorize it and to check what phone had logged in. She said it showed my son's phone. She promised to send me the recording. From there, I went straight to my credit union. I told the manager they had issued a cashier's check that morning and I had not asked for it. She looked at the screen, saw the note about a limit override, and called it in. She marked the check to be stopped if it hit their system again. She also pulled up the call they said came from me. We listened on speaker. It was my voice cut together from other times, with my son feeding answers in the background. I asked her to save that and send it to their fraud team and to me. Next stop was the county recorder's office. I asked for a copy of the deed that moved my house. The clerk printed it and showed me the time, a little after midnight. I looked at the signature and felt my cheeks go hot. It tried to be mine, but it was not. I asked for a supervisor and said, "This was not signed by me." He marked my file as disputed and put a note in their system to watch my property for any more filings. He gave me the form to request the notary's journal. I filled it out on the counter and paid the small fee. I drove home to catch my breath and put the papers in order. I scanned what I had and made a second set of copies. I kept it all simple: bank packet, credit union packet, deed packet. No extra pages. I walked next door and asked my neighbor about his doorbell camera. He pulled up last night. There on the screen was my son on my porch at midnight with a notary I had never met. My stomach turned, but I kept my voice even. He saved the video and gave me a copy. I wrote the time down in my notebook. On the way to the car, I called my granddaughter's art teacher. I asked her to write a short note about the time Brian told the school to bill Grandpa. She remembered and said she would have it ready by the end of the day. I went to the district attorney's office and asked for the elder fraud unit. I handed the investigator the 3 packets and told her I was not there for sympathy. I was there for a case number and next steps. She asked me 4 clear questions and then had me sit in a small room to record a short statement. She scheduled a recorded phone call for that afternoon. My job would be to ask my son 2 plain questions and not argue. On my way home, I stopped by the bank again. They had the lobby camera ready on a disc. I picked up the teacher's note from the school. I called my pension office and told them to stop any change to my deposit and to require me in person for anything new. I changed my passwords that evening and confirmed voice identification on my accounts was off. I confirmed my credit freeze was still in place and verified the post office hadn't changed my address. At 3:10 p.m., the investigator called. She went over the plan one more time. I put my phone on speaker and dialed my son with her recorder running. "Brian," I said, keeping it light, "did your guy finish moving my banking and the deed, or do you still need me for anything with the transfers?" He answered quickly, proud of himself. "It is all done, Dad." Owen handled it. Title, bank, pension, everything's under the umbrella now. The investigator signaled me to ask the second question. And the health papers you wanted, was that the power of attorney or the other one? Power of attorney, he said. Do not worry about it. I got it through. Focus on packing. The investigator ended the recording and nodded. That will do, she said. By 5 o'clock, my table looked different. The papers were in 3 neat stacks. Each stack had a simple cover page with the case number or the date. I had the bank's printed log, the credit union's note on the check, the deed copy with the midnight time, the doorbell video, and the teacher's note. I set my alarm early. On a sticky note, I wrote tomorrow's plan in plain words. Bank follow-up, credit union follow-up, notary journal, second interview at the district attorney at 9. I put the notebook by the door. Before bed, I walked the house and checked the locks. Not out of fear, out of habit. I looked at the tree in the window and told myself the same thing I had been writing all day. Stay calm. Ask for copies. Write down names. Tomorrow, I would keep going. The next morning, I was at my attorney's office by 9. His name is Carter, a man in his 60s with a plain desk and a habit of taking notes by hand. I laid the 3 folders in front of him without a speech. He opened the first one, flipped through the pages slowly, and whistled once under his breath. You've done more work in 2 days than most people manage in 2 months, he said. This is clean. This is exactly what we need. But now we need evidence that isn't just paper. We need proof of behavior. I nodded. That's why I'm here. He's still calling. He's still coming to the house. I want cameras. I want everything recorded, legally, before the next time he tries something. Carter leaned back. Good. You're allowed to record on your own property. You're allowed to put cameras in your living spaces, at your doors, your driveway. I'll have one of my investigators install them today. I'll cover the cost up front. We'll add it to your case as an expense. By noon, 2 men from his office arrived at my house with boxes of small black devices. Doorbell cams, motion sensors, hidden microphones disguised as clocks, a dash cam for my car. They worked quietly, drilling and wiring while I made coffee. Every door, every window, the porch, the driveway, even a camera pointed at my kitchen table. Nothing invasive, just enough to show what happened if he walked in again. They synced it all to a secure cloud account registered to my attorney's office so the files couldn't accidentally vanish. At 2 p.m., Carter called back. Now, Martin, you're going to do the same thing as yesterday, but this time don't call him. Let him call you. Give him room to come to you. Be polite. Do not argue. Just ask 1 or 2 questions that let him talk. Right on cue, at 2:35 p.m., Brian texted, Dad, we need to talk. I'm coming over. I didn't reply. I put the phone face down on the table and let the cameras run. The microphones blinked once when they went live. At 3:15 p.m., his car rolled up. This time, the music was off. He knocked once, then tried the handle. Locked. He knocked again, harder. Dad, open up, he called. We've got to sort the utilities in your storage unit before the movers come. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I opened the door, but left the chain on. The kitchen camera had a perfect view of me. The front camera had a perfect view of him. I don't have a storage unit, I said, and the utilities are in my name. He rolled his eyes. Not anymore. I handled it. You just need to sign the last forms. Owen's in the car waiting. Come on, don't make me drag you out like a child. I tilted my head and spoke quietly. Brian, who told you you could change my accounts? He smirked. Dad, you did. We have it on record. You just don't remember. And who signed my deed at midnight? That's not your problem anymore, he snapped. It's mine. I didn't push further. I didn't need to. The cameras caught every word, every movement, the smug smile at the mention of the deed. Brian, I said, I'm not signing anything today. Please leave. He laughed, but there was an edge to it now. You're unbelievable, he said. You're going to regret this. Everyone's going to think you're losing it. He turned and stormed off, slamming his car door so hard the neighbor's dog barked. The cameras caught the license plate, the timestamp, even the flash of his passenger's face. Owen, looking pale. I closed the door and locked it. My hands were steady. Carter's investigator texted 10 minutes later. All feeds saved. Audio clear. Video perfect. I sat down at the kitchen table and wrote the time, the words, and the short exchange in my notebook anyway. Then I underlined the next step Carter had written at the top of the page. Deliver footage to the district attorney tomorrow morning. For the first time in days, I felt a small, quiet kind of relief. Not because it was over, but because now it wasn't just my word against his. It was my word and a dozen cameras, all telling the same story. The next day, I picked up June from school and drove the slow way home. She climbed into the car, buckled herself in, and hugged the tin of lemon cookies like a small treasure. That simple trust settled me more than any meeting had. At the kitchen table, I made hot chocolate and set out 2 cookies. She drew while I sorted papers into 3 clean stacks. Bank, house, calls. I kept my phone face down and the television off. The quiet felt right. She hummed, kicked her heels against the chair, and every so often looked up to check that I was still there. I was. She handed me a fresh drawing. The 2 of us by the lemon tree again, this time with a big sun in the corner. I slipped it into a clear sleeve and set it where I could see it while I worked. It was a small, steady reminder of why I was doing all of this. We reviewed her spelling list. I used a pencil to make neat check marks. Routine helped both of us. After homework, we watered the lemon tree and walked the yard once. I showed her the porch camera and told her it helped me remember things. She nodded like it made sense and reached for my hand without looking. I let her hold it as long as she wanted. Dinner was simple: soup, bread, sliced apple. She ate well, told me a short story from school, and laughed at her own ending. The house felt like itself again: warm light, clean plates, chairs tucked in after we finished. I packed her a small bag with 2 extra cookies and a copy of her drawing to keep at home. At pickup, I spoke briefly with her mother about the new boundaries, no surprise visits, no curbside talks about money, and saw relief on her face. That helped too. When the house was quiet, I wrote a short entry in the notebook. June is steady. Safety rules understood. Keep the home calm. Keep the plan simple. Do the next task. I put her drawing on the fridge, lined up tomorrow's papers, and checked the locks. Court was coming, and I was ready to carry the facts forward. But before anything else, I stood in the kitchen and let myself feel what mattered. A grandchild who runs to my car, a table that still holds homework and hot chocolate, and a home that is staying ours. The morning after I dropped June off, I drove straight to the district attorney with the new footage. I handed the investigator the doorbell video, the porch exchange, and the short recording from our call. She watched, nodded once, and made 2 quick calls I could hear half of. One to the police, one to a judge's clerk. By noon I had 2 things in hand: an order telling Brian not to contact me or come to the house, and a paper with a case number that meant this was no longer just me pushing uphill. Back home, I put the order by the door. It did not take long to use it. At 2 o'clock, a moving van backed up to my curb. My cameras saw it first. Then I heard boots on the porch. Brian rang the bell and tried the handle. When the chain held, he made a show of waving at the driver. "Open up," he said through the door. "We're on a timetable." "No," I said. "You're not allowed here." "There's an order now." "Leave." He laughed loud enough for the street to hear. "You're not serious." I called the non-emergency line and gave the case number. 2 officers arrived within minutes. Brian tried to talk over me until the officer held up his hand and read the order out loud. The cameras caught his face, go still. He mouthed something at the driver and the truck pulled away. The officers walked him to the sidewalk and watched until his car turned the corner. They told me to keep the paperwork by the door and call again if he came back. I wrote the time and their names in my notebook. The next day brought more ground under my feet. The recorder's office called. They had the notary's journal entry. The signature did not match mine. The journal listed a driver's license number that was not mine. That went straight to the investigator. My bank called too. 2 of the night transfers were still in the system. They were reversing them. The credit union marked the cashier's check as "do not pay." I wrote the new totals in the margin. About $25,000 safely back. The rest tied up but moving in the right direction. By Friday morning, the police served papers. Brian and Owen were picked up for questioning. Carter called to tell me, not with excitement, just with the steady tone I needed. "They have enough to file," he said. "Sit tight at home and let the process work." They did file. Charges included forgery, fraud, and financial elder abuse. No TV words, no drama, just what fit the evidence. Brian was processed and released with rules. No contact with me, no touching my accounts, no going near the house. Owen came out looking like a man who had just realized a locked door meant something. There was one more attempt to rattle me before court. He called from an unknown number and left a message he thought sounded calm. He said I was confused. He said we could handle this as a family. He said I should remember who changes my light bulbs. I saved the message and added it to the pile. The weeks before trial were simple by design. I kept to routine. I mowed. I made dinner. I picked up June and helped with spelling. I met with Carter twice. We did not rehearse speeches. We organized papers. Bank logs first. Doorbell video second. My recorded call third. Porch confrontation fourth. Then the notary's journal and the teacher's note. Clean and clear. Then the day of justice came. It was the moment to settle everything with my son and keep my legacy. You wouldn't believe how hard the court hearing went. On the morning of the hearing, the hallway outside the courtroom was crowded with people balancing folders that looked like mine. Brian stood with Owen by the water fountain, heads together over a phone, laughing like they were early to a golf tee time. His suit was sharp, his hair perfect, his smile aimed at whoever was looking. A local reporter hovered with a camera low, waiting for something to happen. I kept my eyes on the bench where I would sit and ran my rule through my head. Answer what is asked, nothing extra. Breathe in, breathe out, keep steady. Inside, the defense started with noise. Motions to exclude the doorbell video. Motions to suppress the bank audio as unreliable voice authentication. Motions to call me confused based on a single clinic note that said I asked a nurse to repeat herself after a blood draw. The judge denied the first 2 and told them to move on. He held the third until he heard from people who actually knew me. I watched Brian's jaw tighten. The prosecutor worked like a checklist. Night transfers on the screen with the exact timestamps. The login history showing a device labeled iPhone Brian connecting from his building's internet provider. She played the authorization call. The jury heard my voice cut into clean, unnatural edges and Owen whispering answers about limit overrides. Next, the porch video. There was Brian at my door telling me clear as daylight, title, bank, pension, everything's under the umbrella now. The clerk from the recorder's office explained the midnight filing and the driver's license number that did not belong to me. The notary's hand shook as she admitted what she had done and why. Cash, a favor to a friend of a friend, a belief that family matters could be smoothed. The teacher read her short note about the school fee and Brian's instruction to bill Grandpa. It did not take long. No speeches, just bricks in a row. Then the defense turned to tactics that were dirtier because they could fit in a headline. They sent up a memory expert who had never met me. He talked about normal aging and confabulation, about how older adults can fill in blanks without knowing it. He waved at the jury and said my confidence was not proof. The prosecutor stood and asked him one question. Had he examined me? He had not. That was that. They called a cousin of Brian's wife who said I had once left the stove on and smoked up the kitchen. The jurors looked over. I said yes, I scorched a pan 2 winters ago when the tea boiled over. I also replaced the smoke detector batteries myself, and the fire department was not called. The cousin sat down fast. They tried a stack of printouts of text messages that looked like I had agreed to sign documents. My attorney leaned in and whispered, "Watch the dates." The prosecutor did. She asked the defense witness to scroll to the top of one chain. The messages were saved under Dad, New, created 3 days earlier. The timestamps jumped from morning to night inside a single minute. The judge told the defense to put the papers away unless they could bring in the phone itself. They could not. They tried to turn Ellen into a weapon. "Your late wife used to handle the paperwork, correct?" the defense attorney asked. "After she passed, isn't it true you were overwhelmed?" I said I missed my wife every day. I also handled her probate without missing a deadline, paid my property tax on time every year, and knew the difference between a signed deed and a midnight file pushed by a stranger. The attorney's mouth twisted. They pushed harder. They said I was paranoid. They pulled out a bottle from my medicine cabinet with a warning label about possible dizziness and said I had been on it in March. I told them the name of the pill, the dose, and why I took it for 8 days after a dental procedure. I told them when I stopped. The prosecutor showed pharmacy records that match my dates to the day. The jury listened like people watching a tile floor being mopped clean. Brian finally took the stand, wearing that injured look he saves for when bills come due. He called me Dad in the sweet voice he uses at holidays. He said he was trying to protect me. He told the jury he had verbal permission and that I did not want to be bothered with forms. He said the notary came because I got tired at night. He said it with the same ease I had watched him lie with at 12 when the neighbor's window broke. The prosecutor did not raise her voice. "You told your father, title, bank, pension, everything's under the umbrella now, correct?" she asked. I was reassuring him, he said. "Who is under the umbrella?" she asked. He hesitated, then said, "Our family." She showed the jury the receiving account name, Owen Financial Clearing. She asked whose family owned it. He did not answer. Owen looked down at his shoes. The defense tried one last thing. They slid a paper across and called it a power of attorney draft I had signed months earlier. The date was blurred under a faint coffee ring. The F's in my last name were Spears again, not the little flags Ellen used to tease me about. The prosecutor did not even need the handwriting expert. She asked the notary whether she had marked that page in her journal. She had not. She admitted that this was a template they brought, and she had thought it was fine. The judge's face went flat. When it was my turn, the defense lawyer came close enough to count the stitches in my tie. He smiled like we were sharing a secret. "Mr. Hale, would you say you are a proud man?" "I would say I am a careful man," I answered. "Careful men can be stubborn, can they not?" "They can," I said. "They can also keep records." He tried to make me angry. He asked if I loved my son. I said yes. He asked if I was willing to see him ruined to keep a house I could not manage. I told him I managed my house, my bills, and my life. He asked if Ellen would want family harmony. I said my wife wanted honesty and a safe home for our grandchild. He asked if I would forgive my son if the court found him guilty. I said that forgiveness and fraud did not cancel each other out. One lives in the heart, the other lives in a ledger. The prosecutor finished with something simple. She put the timeline on one screen. Calls, transfers, e-file, porch admission. On the other screen she placed the protective order, dated after Brian tried to move me out with a truck. "You are not being asked to solve a family argument," she told the jury. "You are being asked to decide if this defendant planned and executed a financial theft from his father." Look at the order of proof. This is not confusion. This is a plan. The jury went out. In the hallway, Brian tried to catch my eye. He tilted his head as if to say we could still fix this as a family. I looked past him to the door that led outside, to the daylight and the lemon tree that needed watering when I got home. I did not move. The verdict came back clean. Guilty on all counts: fraud, forgery, financial elder abuse, conspiracy. I heard someone in the back exhale. Owen closed his eyes. Brian blinked like the lights had just gotten too bright. There was a short pause, then the judge moved straight to the part that mattered. He spoke plainly. No sermon. This court finds that the defendant exploited a position of trust to execute a deliberate, documented scheme. The sentence must reflect that breach: prison time, restitution for every dollar the banks could not recover, a long enforceable no-contact order, prohibition on managing anyone else's finances, referral of Owen to his licensing board, revocation of the notary's commission already completed. Then the judge did something I will remember longer than the numbers. He looked at me and asked if I had anything I wanted to say before he finalized the restitution schedule. I stood. I did not talk about anger. I talked about legacy. I said I had worked almost 4 decades at the water department. I said I had paid off my house one hammer swing at a time and kept a copy of every invoice because paper keeps a life honest. I said, I am a grandfather. I said, children need to know that home is not something that can be quietly signed away in the night. I said the truth belongs in writing so it can outlast us. When I sat down, the courtroom was quiet in the right way. Not dramatic, just listening. After the sentencing, reporters tried to make a story out of faces. They showed Brian and Owen at the fountain, laughing before the hearing. They showed me at the drinking fountain, a paper cup in my hand. They wrote captions I did not read. I went home the way I always do. Steady, no radio. At the house, I unlocked the door and walked through each room. On my desk sat the original deed with my name restored. On the table were the papers that had carried what I could not. On the fridge was June's drawing of us by the lemon tree, the sun big in the corner. I called Carter and asked him to set up a simple education trust for June. The first restitution payment would go there. I wrote a short note to my daughter-in-law with clear rules for calm. No surprise visits, no curbside talk about money, plans in writing. I watered the lemon tree and checked the porch camera because habits stay useful. In the quiet days after the verdict, I changed the locks. I returned the hidden cameras and kept only the ones at the door, the porch, and the driveway. I boxed the case papers and slid them behind the winter coats. The deed went back into the fireproof box. I opened a smaller bin of Brian's old things. A Little League photo. A class project. The slingshot I took away when he was 12. I put them in a clean box, labeled it with the date, and set it beside the case file. I did not throw anything out. I also did not put his picture back on the hallway table. Some decisions need time. Neighbors called and a casserole showed up. A man from church asked how I kept my records. I told him the truth. Dates, copies, calm. I agreed to speak once at the library's senior night about simple steps to stay safe. I kept my voice even and my own feelings at home. Carter sent over the trust papers. I signed them and wrote a letter for June to open at 18. It was about tuition, books, tools, and having enough to fail once and stand up again. I tucked a copy of her lemon tree drawing behind it and sealed the envelope. A letter came from the jail through Carter's office. Brian wrote about stress and bad advice. He apologized that I felt hurt. He never touched the facts. I walked the yard, then answered through Carter. I love you. You did this. When you are ready to admit it, we can discuss next steps. Until then, do not contact me directly. June came over that Saturday. We baked a lemon pie with store crust and fruit from the tree. She pressed a crooked J into the top. We ate warm slices and started a little college jar out of an old coffee tin. $5 went in. found coins and a bill from my wallet. It felt right to begin small and steady. When the next restitution check arrived, I did not celebrate. I took it to the bank, then came home and opened a new binder labeled House Book. Inside, I made a clean list of accounts, contacts, and the steps to follow if I am ever in a hospital or gone. Preparing is not dramatic. It is responsible. Some days the house feels heavier. I see the empty spot on the hallway table where a picture might sit, and I let it stay empty. I sweep the porch. I trim the lemon tree. I read the first page of the notebook and remember the day I started. People still send me the clip from the courthouse hallway. I do not watch it. I prefer the view at my kitchen table at 7 in the evening, pencils in a cup, a cooling pie plate, a drawing held up by a magnet. I would have liked a better version of my son in that picture. I did not get one. I got the truth on record and a safer path for his daughter. For now, that is enough. Before bed, I walk the rooms, lock the doors, and set the coffee for morning. Then I open my notebook to the first page, the rough totals, the names, the line that says, "Stay calm." Under it, in the same careful hand, I write, "Truth on paper. House intact. Future protected." Did I do the right thing to protect my home and my granddaughter's future? Would you do something differently? Add your thoughts in the comments below.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.